You are now listening to Bull Hook Golf, an unfiltered golf podcast taking you inside the ropes with unfiltered stories, insights, analysis, and exclusive interviews. Welcome back, everybody, to Bull Hook Golf, the podcast. This is episode number 67. I'm Matt Cook. This is Bobby Brown, the legendary PGA Tour caddy. And boy, do we have a special show for everybody. Today we've got really what has become, and what I've heard is really one of the players' favorite championships here at the Travelers out in Connecticut.
It is.
Is it Cromwell?
Cromwell. Cromwell.
See, that's what I get for not having my notes up in front of me early. You know, those things happen.
It's okay.
But we've got a bunch to dive into. Yeah, we've got a lot to get into. We've got the U.S. Open that just happened at Los Angeles Country Club. We've got a little bit, just a tiny bit of news around the merger. Not much. So don't get too excited, fans, for the end of the episode. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and jump in. And Bobby, you've got some caddy shakeup news for us from
You want to start right with that?
I do. That's where I want to begin. Let's get into it.
Well, I hope everybody's sitting down because this is going to be a big surprise that Sungjae Im has fired another caddy. Another one of my referrals, another friend, Lance Bennett, rest in peace. $150,000 to the good, I reckon, in the last 3 months. So that's the positive on something like this. But I'll tell you, it was kind of I can't use the F word anymore. YouTube says I can't use the F word. So it was kind of a beep situation. So let me paint the picture for you. He misses another cut. He's playing bad right now, right? So they missed the cut on Friday, and it's Lance's little boy's third birthday. So usually you hang around with the Koreans because you have to practice over the weekend and get yourself through it, right?
Sure.
So he says, Lance, you go home for the weekend, go be with your little boy. No big deal. I'll practice. I can be by myself. I don't need you. So I should preface this story by telling you that I have a friend who played on tour out here. We all have a friend he played out here for 5 or 6 years. He's gone through some big addiction problems. Willie Wilcox. Do you know the name Willie Wilcox, right? Really good ball striker. Came out quite openly about his drug problems, that he was playing pretty much on drugs. Like we didn't know it was as deep as heroin, but it was a heroin thing. And he's just, have you ever met guys in life that get wrapped up in drugs and they're just like the coolest guys for some reason, right? They're like the guys you want to hang.
College roommates.
Yeah, they're just good guys, and for whatever reason, whatever their story is, they go down the wrong path, and once they take that wrong turn, it's hard to get back onto the expressway, so to speak. So, anyways, Willie has quit playing golf. He started caddying a little bit for Lanto Griffin, and he wanted to get away kind of from the tour life and keep himself on the up and up. So he moved to where I live in Charleston. He started caddying out at the Ocean Course at Kiowa, and his stock was rising out there. He was doing well. He was playing a lot of golf, and he linked up with an amateur, a fifth-year senior. He actually played in the U.S. Open this past week. Willie caddied for him. His name's Ben Carr. He got beat in the finals to Sam Bennett, if you remember, in Jersey at Ridgewood. So they're in the U.S. Open. He played on the Korn Ferry Tour with Sungjae, right? So I'm setting this story up. And so Lance has gone home. Sungjae's missed another cut. He's in one of those streaks. He's never been outside the top 30 on the FedEx Cup, not 1 week of his career ever in, let's say, call it 5 or 6 years, right, Matt? So I'm sitting at home and I'm watching the U.S. Open, and I get a screenshot text from a caddy. We call him Bambi. His name's Ron Levin. And he says, "Is this true?" And it's Willie Wilcox on Twitter saying, "Wow, I'm excited. I just found out I'm going to work for Sungjae Im for 2 weeks." Right. And I'm like, well, that can't be true. I think it was like when you sent me the PIF thing, it was the first thing that went through my mind was like it was some kind of fake news. And I'll tell you why I thought it was fake news is because we had the U.S. Junior Amateur, Matt, coming up the third week of July across the street from my house. And I have a young man named Willie Walsh who is going on a full scholarship to Pepperdine from Northern California, needed a caddy, right? So I negotiated Willie to work for him the third week of July. And so anyways, I'm like, let me check into this. So who's the first one I check with is Lance, right? So I call Lance and I go, hey, are things good with you and Sungjae? He's like, oh yeah, you let me go home for my son's birthday, right? And I'm like, well, you need to see this. So I sent him the
no.
effing screenshot, and he goes, "You're kidding, right?" So the deal is that Willie and Sungjae they played together on the Korn Ferry Tour. Let's just say they were acquaintances. They got paired together. It's not like they were great friends or anything like that. Willie hung out with different people, and Sungjae's Korean. That's all I need to say about that. So, anyways, apparently within 2 minutes, Sungjae's like, "Oh, you caddy? No, you caddy now, Willie?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm caddying for this Ben Carr, this amateur. We made the cut." He's like, "Oh yeah, congratulations." And Willie said that Sungjae took like 2 steps and he turned back around and he goes, "You know what? My luck bad right now with my caddy Lance. Maybe you come caddy for me for 2 weeks. It's okay." And Willie's like, "You're Sungjae M. Yeah, I'd love to." So Willie didn't know the deal, so he immediately puts it on Twitter, right? So now Lance is devastated. I've told him the bad news. So I immediately text Rambert, his agent, and I text Sungjae, and I showed him a picture of the screenshot. And I go, "Hey, tell me if this is true or not." And they both responded back, "It's true." And I said, Willie just put this up on effing Twitter, and you guys haven't told Lance that yet. And that's not a very good way to do business. So they scrambled, they picked up the phone, they called Lance, they told him, hey, they were going to make a change. They made it sound like it was only going to be a 2-week see how it goes thing, Matt. But that's BS, right? That's just their way of trying to be nice and not let somebody down. And I think they felt bad about the way it went down. So Willie's super excited. I got him to take that thing down because obviously with what's funny is I was talking, me and Sungjae had a long talk on the range today, and I feel like our relationship, we're good friends. I feel like I'm falling into an older brother role with him. Does that make any sense? He really doesn't have a lot of friends.
As a mentor.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but older brother sounds so much better. So an older brother role. So he was kind of telling me that, Lance listens to this podcast, as we all know. He's been one of our great guests before on it. And he was just telling me, hey, I'm not playing good. And that culture, they're very superstitious as far as luck goes. So good news for Willie. Bad news for Lance. Lance was pretty bummed out about it, but I told Lance the same thing that I told Billy Spencer when Billy Spencer went in there. I go, listen, can we put this in the big picture? Because I'm a big picture guy, as you know, Matt. I go, you should have taken a screenshot of your checking account, Lance, before you took the Sungjae bag, and then a screenshot the day that you lost the Sungjae bag, because it's about $150,000 in 3 months with a couple good chances to win and win. And listen, Sungjae doesn't listen to this podcast, but I'd be the first one to tell him, when you go to work for Sungjae M, you're immediately on the clock, right? You know the stories. He's just a tough bag. He's hard on caddies. He can not make you feel comfortable out there. And I'm just going to say it in quotation marks, and I've said it to his face, he's never made a mistake or hit a bad shot in his life. So you try and, man, I really hope he doesn't listen to this podcast, but you suck every penny out of him that you possibly can, and you go for as long as you can. So that's a big shakeup. Willie's got a very vibrant, outgoing personality, which we're going to see how that goes over with Sungjae as far as the social side goes, because as I told you before, when you work for Sungjae M, it doesn't matter if it's Tuesday on the driving range for 2 hours, you have to be in the zone and you have to be focused and you have to wait on him. It's all about the service and that kind of stuff. And I kind of made a deal with Sungjae that I was going to I wouldn't say coach Willie through, but I was going to send him some messages and some tidbits on what's expected from working for Sungjae. And, you got to go to meters. He's never done meters before. You got to adjust your pin sheet down by 9% for obvious reasons. So, so it's that time of year, and, and another one went down shortly thereafter that, and that was a good friend of mine, David Streza, who works for Brandon Wu, and they're having a great year. All of us are scratching our heads over this one. He was 43rd on the list. David is a little bummed out right now, as he should be, because he kind of helped build that player from the ground up. And when you invest that much time and it comes to an end, you really take it personal, right? It's hard to let it go. So I'm not sure what Brandon Wu's plans are. He does have Harry Higgs' brother on the bag, Al Higgs, because Harry's not in this week in this, designated event. So two Saturday firings in June. I like to say it's a surprise and it's a shock, Matt, but in this business, brother, what is a surprise and a shock? Nothing really surprises me anymore. So that's kind of some big news on the caddy front there.
Caddy
I'm sure we'll have.
shakeup.
God, it just happens. This is the caddy show, right? So let's not talk about it. We'll get the good shit over with. So I wish Sungjae the best. Like I said, we had a nice talk on the range today. And I feel like he has to explain himself to me. You know what I mean? Like, this is the reason why I did this. And, oh, you know, I'm a little crazy and, oh, God, that kind of stuff. And I just wonder, who's the best Korean in the world right now? It's Siwoo, right? Siwoo's the best Korean in the world right now. Well, when Siwoo had his, and I love Sungjae's dad, but Siwoo's been recently married. His dad's been back in Korea for the last couple of years, and I don't think it's any coincidence that Siwoo is a little more freed up on the golf course. Because maybe he doesn't have to come home every single night and explain what went wrong or why he hit a 7-iron here or why he missed this green. I'm just assuming that's what those kids go through in that culture. So we'll see if. I don't know if Sungjae will ever get that independence. I'm sure he will as he gets older, you know, or as his dad gets older. But I wish him the best of luck. And I'll say it again. Willie's been through some personal struggles, and I really wish the best for him. This is he made some good money while he was on tour, but when you have some bad habits, I think that money goes pretty quick. I think, I can speak for myself. I had issues in my early 20s. I was never to his level. But you just, you think it's always going to be, it's always there until it's not, really, right? It's always there until it's not. So I wish the best for William. And I just hope everything works out. And it looks like I have to find a new caddy for the U.S. Junior if it does work out. So what do you do in the third week of July, Matt?
Apparently,
get you $1,500 and a $500 bonus for every match.
Done.
And so, yeah. And I'm excited to have the U.S. Junior. That's where all your Scottie Schefflers and your future stars, really come at the map. I'm going to be out of town that week. I've been fielding a lot of phone calls and trying to move some. I wish I had a caddy factory, right, where I could just build a nice model and ship them out.
You kind of are right now. I mean,
yeah, I know.
You got a little stable of guys.
I do a little bit. There's no doubt about that. But you always want to make sure it's the right fit, because when you refer a guy, it's a direct reflection on you, and they're taking your opinions, and that kind of stuff. But I was telling Lori, I'm like, man, I'm glad that I'm on the road and everything like that. But I just love working for young kids and seeing the future out there. And it's a USG event. It's a fantastic golf course, Daniel Island Club. I know I'm getting off track here a little bit, but it should be super exciting. On a side note, it is July. I'm going to say the first play date is July 23rd. And then there's two courses there, the Beresford Creek and Ralston. And the USG has been there the last 2 years. I see them driving around. They've been touching up the golf course, redoing the bunkers, doing what USGA guys, what they do to certain courses to make them fit. I'm not going to say it was a success last week at LA North, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm pretty stoked. And then I was telling Lori, I'm like, we live 5 minutes from the course. I think we can rent our house for like $5 fucking grand. Can you go downtown for a week with the dog at a hotel? I did the math. It's going to cost $2,190 with pet fees, and we're going to walk out of there making $2,800. And she just stared me down. So I'll take that as a healthy negative, Bob.
Yeah, that's a hard no there, Bobby.
Yeah, but we have an extra bedroom too. But it's a shame that these kids, they come with their parents, right? A 16-year-old doesn't come and play in the biggest junior tournament in the world by himself. But I would just love to be a part of a young man's dream and have them stay at my house and that kind of stuff. But you know me, I'm the big dreamer, right? Everything's a big dream, and I feel like I got my heart in the right spot. So that's the big caddy shakeup news. And I'm sure was there other golf last week? I can't really remember because I never left the TV.
I don't know.
I watched every minute.
Yeah, I got to get into that, but I do want to say that as soon as Sungjae runs out of options of caddies, that I'm available. I'm jumping in. I'll take 150 grand over 3 months. Let's go, Sungjae. Let's make it happen, buddy. We got this.
I can just stay out of the way and be quiet and let you do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give him numbers. I'll stay out the way. I'll bring some good energy out there.
For sure. And as soon as he comes up short or he comes up long, you can look at him and you can go, why no pin high? Huh? Why no paying high, you so bad player. Would be awesome. Would be awesome if somebody had the huevos grande to do that to him, even though he's my buddy. What else you got tonight?
U.S. Open. Let's recap that bad boy out at Los Angeles Country Club. A nice little country club that, they've got a few members and, kind of a good golf course
couple
there.
Bucks.
Yeah, a couple bucks there, It's right off of Wilshire Boulevard and right by on the border of Beverly Hills. I used to live right over there back in the day when I lived in LA for a year. But man, I was actually in LA. So I actually drove past, and they built like this really cool bridge over Wilshire Boulevard for fans to be able to go over from the parking lot and everything, which was really cool to see. But only 18,000 fans. We'll get into that a little bit. But what did you learn from last week's U.S. Open there, Bobby? Because you watched every minute of it. We were texting back and forth. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I actually wanted to ask you that question first because I'm not going to say I'm going to go on a rant, but it didn't feel like a U.S. Open. It didn't feel like a U.S. Open to me. The first thing I was frustrated with was, did you notice that the angle of the TV cameras were all off a little bit? Like you never got a direct line on a tee shot or never a direct line on a green. It felt like some tee shots and holes were crisscrossing. So I was a little confused as to the routing of the golf course. There didn't seem to be a lot of, and I watched it from the crack of dawn on, and I'm on the East Coast, so it didn't finish till 10:30 or 10:45 at night. I was driving Lori and the boys crazy, but they focused on the same players all the time. Obviously, I had a bunch of friends, including yourself, trying to get some tickets, and I did have some friends that ended up going out there that are from that area that are Riviera members, and they were saying that I'm just going to say it. They said the spectating was horrible. They couldn't really hardly see anything. I don't think you could. Part of the golf course was shut down to people like that corner there of 12 and 13 T at Augusta, where you couldn't see 12 or 13. There wasn't very many people. Numerous players have gone on record, as have my caddy buddies, to saying that the energy and the vibe wasn't there. And Matt, I've said it before. I've done numerous U.S. Opens, and the whole key to a U.S. Open as a caddy and a player is, when you make 3 pars or 4 pars in a row, Matt, you're like, I got momentum and I'm rolling. And when those guys went Yahtzee the first day, you knew that the USGA was going to have trouble. I understand the marine layer and that kind of stuff, but they were going to have trouble keeping that golf course around even par. Let's just say that. They weren't even close to even par. There was a big difference in waves from the morning waves to the afternoon waves. As we did see some U.S. Open kind of action there over the weekend in the later waves when things started firming up, but way too wide of fairways. Right. Well, the par threes were obviously fantastic. It was a great mix of par 3 distances, anywhere from 80 some yards all the way up to 284 or 290, which was great. But when you got guys like Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland, BK Brooks said something. I think even John Rahm might have gone on record as saying something. And then I talked to all my guys, and it just didn't have the feel or the excitement that Shinnecock would have, or even if it was at Riviera, or what we had at Brookline last year with all the Boston crazies, and I think that I know it was a great golf course to showcase, and it's a very famous golf course, but I was disappointed personally. Thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. Well, when we talk about the atmosphere, the one stat that stands out to me is that 18,000 fans were sold tickets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At the Waste Management Open on the 16th hole alone, you have 20,000 fans. So
that should,
that tells you right there that, it was way too limited. Bad job from a fan exposure and from really, a USGA event. This is a U.S. Open. This is for the fans. It's like that one to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. Obviously, property, parking, all that type of stuff is a challenge in that area, but just not what I was expecting at all. Like you said, Colin Morikawa came out and he was so excited about this tournament. And his biggest negative on it. Yeah, he was pumped. He's like, I've been looking forward to this for so long. And then a day later, or actually 2 days later, he's like, the atmosphere sucked. Like the fans were boring. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what it came down to. And you heard it from obviously not only the players, but also from the caddy side as well. The course. Let's talk about the course for a second, because I think the USGA actually got screwed by the weather. I don't think it was something to where
for sure
they can't trick out that golf course to be, I mean, right around even par, because that is a very challenging golf course. I also did not like the setup with the camera towers and so forth.
You noticed
where
that?
You really couldn't. Yeah, everything was off at an angle. Even, I mean, shoot, even on Sunday when Wyndham Clark, I was one of his last two tee shots, whether it was 17 or 18, I don't remember. But all of a sudden, this shot tracer was way off. And it's like, man, the one time you need a shot tracer, because it started getting dark, sun started blasting in their faces and everything. And those last two holes go basically directly into the sun setting. And so the shot tracer showed that shot going way off to the right, and then it ends up in the right side of the fairway. So you went from going, oh no, he freaking blew it, to all of a sudden, oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Exactly.
I mean, it just wasn't a great setup.
It wasn't. It was disappointing, right, man? It was just disappointing. But I don't want to take away from the potential star that we just saw play golf. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Because he was so impressive. You know, I beat you out of the penny bet, because
I love how I started talking about him, and then you created a penny bet against me with him. I love the fact that you did that to me.
Well, for those who don't know, Matt is not like related to Wyndham Clark, but if you've listened to the show before, they work out that you share the same trainer, right? They share the same trainer, so Matt's well aware of who Wyndham Clark is. And I'm not tuning my own horn, but I told you, we talked about it a few months ago, that I really thought that he was going to get on form, and he had so much potential and so much horsepower, and he just lost his shit, honestly, on the golf course all the time. And he could not take failure, and he could not take a bad shot. And, and he's got over that. Obviously, we'll talk about Julie's role, his head coach in the whole thing, because he's been, and she's really done a lot for him. But let's just talk about, did I nail Kurt Kitayama as the breakout player of the year? Yeah, I nailed that. But this guy, here's your real breakout player of the year, is Wyndham Clark. And I got to tell you another story. I'm really, really good friends with his caddy, John Ellis. And actually, my roommate who I'm staying with, this John Turcotte, played on the Canadian Tour, was a fantastic golfer at the University of Wisconsin. Played John Turcotte and John Ellis both played in the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. I've talked about this U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. I think it was 2011 maybe, where Stuart Appleby made the 90-foot putt on the 18th hole at Torrey Pines, knocked my roommate out, John Turcotte. He also knocked out John Ellis. And John Ellis, we all kind of hung in the same group on the Canadian Tour. And John Ellis, to me, of all the guys I was hanging out with, was the guy that I thought that wasn't going to miss, right? He was going to be like a no-miss guy, but for some reason, he could not. It was putting with him, but he really couldn't get through second stage of Q school ever. And I guess it's all good now, because he's made about $800,000 in tour tournaments. So I couldn't be more excited. I think when John came out, when he retired from golfing, he was a stud on All-American at the University of Oregon. He took the assistant's job under Casey Martin. Obviously, Wyndham played for him, and Norman Zhang, the big player that was recruited, that Callaway paid all the money for, he played there too. And I think when John first came out, I don't know if he would say he was a great caddy and everything like that. He was a great player, but I think he's molded over time. And, my big deal is when I watch these things on TV, and those boom mics and hot mics are right on us all the time. So you really get to hear what a player's saying. And I was so impressed the way that he kept the flow going. And when he opened up that quick 3-shot lead, and then it was down to a 2-shot lead, and then a 1-shot lead. Did you notice walking off a 16 tee that John said something to him that made him laugh, and they were both giggling? And that's what caddies do under pressure, is they try and put a smile on a guy's face when you feel the momentum turning the other time. So I was super proud of both of those guys. And this guy could be, you can take your Tom Kim all you want, but I'm going to take Wyndham Clark every day of the week, because here is your prototypical 2023, goes to the gym, gets after it, just a complete, absolute thoroughbred. And we were due for something like that because we lost a lot of players, right? I mean, we lost a lot of players. And personally, I'll just say I'm happy that a live guy didn't win myself. I just felt like that was going to be too much ammunition for all those live people that we talk about, the tweeters or social media guys that don't have anything nice to say, like I should talk, right? I'm the king of talking shit myself, but I was just super stoked. So I don't want to take away from him. I don't want to take away from the fact that Rory almost won another major and looked like he was possibly going to get it done. The Rickie Fowler story was just amazing from the start. I will tell you that there's another caddy that is finally getting the respect he deserves himself. Ricky Romano, who was another fantastic college player, was a great California mini tour player, burst on the scene with Charlie Belgian when they tried to win Riviera, and he ends up with Ricky's bag. And if you listen to him talk too, he is very positive, right? That's what Ricky Romano is. He's like John Ellis. They're very positive caddies, and they reek of something good's going to happen to their player. And everybody, it seemed like everybody had a great week, except for the guys that didn't like the golf course, right? Except for the guys that didn't like the golf course. And I will tell you this, for all that we talk about, and he talks about himself, Brooks Koepka, how he's mentally stronger than everybody else, for him to make those comments after the round on Thursday when he didn't get off to a good start, that, hey, this is a great golf course to come play with your friends, but not have a U.S. Open. What is that? Where was his mental strength that he thinks he's so much better than everybody else?
Well, and does that make sense before the week too, though? Before the week, he was talking about how, look at my past, look at my history. I love U.S. Opens because they're single digits. I don't go off and go crazy with a ton of birdies and everything and shoot 25 under par. Look at my history. So he kind of pigeonholed himself. And then as soon as the numbers were 8 under the first round and he makes that comment, he's out of the golf tournament. So you're spot on. I mean, for as much as he touts being so mentally strong in major championships, he talked himself out of this championship.
I call it the edge, right, man? He lost his edge right there. He basically was... I translated, he's basically saying, I'm too far back. I didn't make enough birdies. I can't win. I didn't get that red hot start. And, obviously as the week, as the tournament went on through the weekend and Sunday, it was quite obvious that nobody that was in contention that was going to be teeing off at 2 or 3 p.m. was going to make a huge move and go for 7 under, unless your name is Tommy Fleetwood, but he was still 2 or 3 hours in front of everybody else and threw up a nice little
soft
post.
At that point in time. The marine layer was out. It was nice and soft for him. It was a scoreable golf course in the mornings. And then as the afternoon and the marine layer burned off on Saturday and Sunday, it became a pretty difficult golf course.
If you shot 1 to 3 under, you played some golf out there, right? But it's so weird turning on the mornings and seeing guys just attacking flag sticks in a U.S. Open when it's all about strategy and you're pinpointing the release on the greens and strategizing your way around there. I mean, it was a great looking golf course, but I still couldn't tell you the routing of the holes. And I'm usually one of those picture perfect memories when it comes to golf courses. And I remember this hole and I remember that hole. And every time I turn the TV on, I'm like, what hole are we talking about here? And then the weird camera angles. So
it was the weird camera angles, Bobby, because you couldn't see the layout of the golf course. I mean, that's what was pretty challenging about the whole entire TV broadcast. And maybe it was just where they could actually set up TV towers and so forth, or where they thought they were going to get good shots. I don't know.
Yeah. Excuse me. You know what another pleasant surprise was? That I made a bad call at the start of the year when they hired Brad Faxon.
I love it when you talk about bad calls.
I made a bad call talking about Brad Faxon. Talking about Brad Faxon and how I didn't think he was going to fit on TV. Boy, he's sounds like the best on TV now, doesn't he?
He's pretty dang good.
His insight, and I'm always been an Azinger fan. People either love Paul or they hate him. I personally love him because I've said before, I've been with him in practice rounds at concession in the past, and he's just like a big kid. He just loves golf so much. But listening to Brad Faxon was made my whole week, and just what's going through players' mind, and especially his expertise with putting and how he preaches the non-foot thing and the aim point, and he's all feel and he's all mental upstairs and that kind of stuff. I do. That was a big win, I think, for the broadcast. You want to know what the big loser on the broadcast was?
Oh
How
yeah.
the hell do they have Morgan Pressel doing a men's US Open? And don't even get me started on her voice because it's so bad for TV. It's funny.
That
I
was
text.
rough. That was rough.
Oh, how I
And
don't I don't
I don't want to talk
I,
badly about Morgan Press,
I can.
but that was a tough
Annoying.
TV, annoying. It was like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. It just didn't sell me as her as a
Hmm.
broadcaster doing
Yeah.
a US Open, a major championship. I know they're
Yeah.
trying to be diverse and have a woman on there and so forth, but
Sure.
it
Yeah.
just didn't resonate with me from the content that was being talked about. And I feel
You know,
like you need good content,
y-
especially at a major
yeah.
championship.
And I don't really. I watch my share of LPGA. I'm going to admit it. I like watching these women athletes play golf, and she's obviously the lead announcer on the LPGA. But she's following Judy Rankin, who's the all-time greatest women's announcer in LPGA, and there'll never be another one like her. So I think she's got an uphill battle. But I was disappointed that they had her, and it's not a man woman thing to me whatsoever. It's what the viewers can relate to, and I feel like 8 out of 10 viewers want to hear it from somebody that's been there before. She's never won a US Open. Obviously, she finished second in a US Open when she was like 16 years old, but she doesn't have much experience in the men's game and that kind of stuff. So I was a little disappointed on that. I would have rather to see our caddy buddy who does great TV, John Wood, running that in the
Yeah.
booth doing that 3 or 4 hour broadcast.
I
To tell you
loved
the truth,
him when
because
he was doing it.
he's fabulous. He's fantastic. And did you know at the start of the week, I don't know if you saw it or not, but he actually went out there and did with a yardage book and did like a tutorial on what the caddies are doing out there and what the strategies were for, I think, every day, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. He did like 3 or 4 holes, and I really, really enjoyed that. So there was a lot of positives, but on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm just going to tell you this was a 7 for a U.S. Open, and I don't think another U.S. Open is going to a men's US Open is going to go back there. I believe the women go there. It's funny how the USGA already has US Open courses for like 2034 and
Well, yeah,
2039. I guess,
isn't 39 back at LA Country Club
is it for the men or for the women?
for the women, I believe.
It's for the women. We also do have a US Open coming up at Riviera sometime in the future. I know we're Pinehurst
That's going to
next
be
year.
epic.
There's your US Open course. There's where you're going to have tens of thousands of people and electricity, and you're not going to be claustrophobic. And people are, I mean, they're crazy there when we play Tigers tournament, right? So,
And that
it
golf
was
course is tough enough. You grow
oh
out
my
that
gosh.
rough. Oh, it's going to be
Yeah.
epic.
You
Absolutely.
know my stories when I've gone on record saying the greatest round that I've ever seen, that I've ever been a part of, was Siwoo there 5 years ago when it was blowing 40 miles an hour. And granted, that's in February, right? But you get that rough up and those firm greens where you're basically playing front edge or just past front edge, and the slopes in them and that kind of stuff.
Oh
Now
gosh,
that's going to be
what number is the par 3 that can't be hit as it is already? Oh, I'm trying to remember the number.
which
Oh,
one?
it's the par 3 with the bunker in the front, and all the balls end
Four,
up full.
four. Yeah, they all land. We all land one pace short into
Yep.
the Kikuyu, and it stays right there. Yeah,
Exactly.
four. Great
Yep.
hole.
And just
Excuse me,
imagine that thing
going.
getting burnt out, and all of a sudden,
Oh
as
my
hard as a
God.
rock. That's going to be impossible.
I can't wait. Hopefully I'm still alive for that when it rolls around, and still I'm not on crutches or watching it in a wheelchair. So just to summarize, it was a 7 out of 10. I was totally disappointed. I was totally stoked for Wyndham.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, I
That's
gave it
high.
a 7 out of. Oh, where were you?
I was in the 5 to
6-ish?
6.
Wow, that's almost failing. Like that was a good grade for me in high school, a 5. 50% or 60%. I'll give it a 7 just because Wyndham won it. But the lack of crowd support and the excitement and the electricity that goes with the U.S. Open, and that's got to be a tough place to have one, right? I mean, Riviera and Santa Monica, there it's a much more accessible to get to. Traffic's still a nightmare, but there's just so much history at Riviera. And another thing I read of those 18. I heard 18,000 tickets, and I've heard 21 or 22,000 tickets. But you also heard the story that most of the members have so much money that they bought up thousands of tickets, right? So they wouldn't have that many people there. And that was a little, foo-fooey for me, if you know what I mean. Nose up in the air, you know. Hey, listen, I know when you hold a course at your own private club that, you know, that's your sacred club and that kind of stuff. But I would, if I was a member, I would be like so excited to show the public my, you know, what my hard work in life, or owning a business or successful or something. I would like to show off the club where I've retired at, you know, and that I get to play every single day and not a lot of people get to play. So I was a little bummed to hear about that too. Ooh, I'm out of breath.
That was good, Bobby. Let's talk about the penny bets for a second, because two out of three, I took you. Ouch. I'm sorry about that. Yeah,
go ahead. Tell everybody.
I mean, the one that I didn't expect you to win was the one you actually won.
Yeah, so, I like that one.
Yeah, you did. I thought Max Homa was going to.
He got to get over the hurdle, he got to get over the hurdle in major championships. There's something with Max and major championships that they just don't get along. It's funny, we watch him play for 3 or 4 weeks out of the year and we're like, man, is this a top 5 player in the world or a top 10 player in the world? But just goes to show you how deep the talent pool is. But what's he played in 6 US Opens? He's made the cut in 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I think there's that level of confidence that's lacking from him in major championships.
Has to be.
And that was definitely, I thought he was going to get over the hump because of the hometown crowd and everything. But as we just talked about, there was no atmosphere. So maybe that played a little bit a part of not kind of boosting him up into that next level. But you had Justin Sue. Is it Sue or Suh? Suh.
Yes.
So you had him. Every day. I had Max Homa, and you won that one. I had Preston Summerhays, and you had Michael Brennan, which both of those guys ended up missing the cut.
You should give me a discount for that. You should give me a 5,000 penny discount.
Should we just disqualify that one? Do you want to disqualify? I didn't feel right about that.
I can't do that. Right. Now, you know I'm a karma guy. That was a win. I
gave you an opening there.
I picked first, and you know what the problem was? I read this article about Martin. Obviously, I knew who he was, but I read this article about him, and I'm like, oh man, this guy is going to play pretty good. But honestly, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have gone with Gordon Sargent, you know. But he disappointed me so bad at Augusta.
Didn't you mention him? And then you went with Michael Brennan? Yeah, I thought so.
I did. Yeah,
terrible
I did.
Decision there.
Yeah, thanks, man. I love you too, buddy. That was a bad decision, bro. I made plenty of them in my life.
And I got Scottie Scheffler over your Victor Hovland, but I liked your Victor Hovland up until his comments. So, yeah, long story short, I am up, 6,000 again?
Yeah, you're back 6,000 pennies.
Back up 6,000 pennies. You got to love that. You gotta be, if you're Matt Cook.
Yeah. If you're Matt Cook, not if you're Bob.
No, you're gonna have to go on another run here. So
I need to get the Live Tour back. It's the only thing I can win on.
Well, and you've given up your number 1 draft pick of the.
I'm going to get it back. You're going to make a mistake one of these weeks. God, we're running out of tournaments on the Live Tour. I need you to make a mistake.
We really are. Maybe forever too. Maybe these are going to be the last Live golf events ever. I say right now, you pick up some swag for the different teams, because if they do go belly up, you're going to be like, remember when there was a team called the Range Coats?
As Joel Damon would say, I always dreamed about playing on the 4 Aces when I was growing up. Now maybe they'll let me do it. But we got some good golf coming up.
We do have some good golf coming up. But before we go there, on the line of what we were talking about with Wyndham Clark and how great it was to see him win, I really feel like this was an obvious one that the PGA Tour just did not do a good job at all of promoting this individual. And I really believe, and I've thought this for years now, and before we even started doing the show or anything like that, I really felt like the PGA Tour is really bad at promoting people, and they don't start promoting until somebody actually wins, or is somebody like Rickie Fowler, who has that crossover kind of ability for motocross to the PGA Tour, and that's why Rickie became so big. But all you need to do is put a little effort behind some of these guys that are super talented. And I don't know why they don't have somebody in their marketing division that is almost like an agent who's looking at these guys going, wow, this guy is the next guy. Because if you and I can sit here and go, hey, Wyndham Clark is going to be a outstanding breakout player at some point this year. He's playing way too well. They could have started this at the beginning of the year, Bobby. When you all of a sudden you look and he's number 2 in driving distance. And then on top of that, the guy's jacked. He's a good looking guy. Like you've got all the pieces there in order to really promote somebody. And he's got a good personality. That's the other thing too. I just started hearing him in interviews and I'm like, wow, how do you not promote this guy?
Well, I will. But I agree with you and I disagree with you. And I'll tell you the reason why I disagree with you. You already mentioned all the reasons why I agree with you. But why I disagree with you is because he played on tour for 5 years and he made $3 million, right? And only us guys on the inside would get bits and pieces of how real talented he really was. And, he pops up on form and he wins at Wells Fargo. He wins at Wells Fargo on a big boy golf course. And he's very impressive doing that. But I don't know if he was really on the PGA Tour's radar at that point. I mean, it didn't take them long to jump on Tom Kim when he got hot last year and start promoting the hell out of him.
They were late on him too, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but I don't know how. I don't know who runs that or how you promote that, because the fact is that we're down to promoting only X amount of guys right now because X amount of guys went to play live, right? So who do we promote now? Scottie, John, Colin, Max, continue on.
Jordan
Victor,
Spieth, Justin Thomas.
Justin
Rickie
Thomas.
Fowler.
Wow. Yeah, Justin Thomas. We didn't even talk about that disappointment. I told you the ship is taking water right now.
Bobby,
the ship is taking water.
Can I say it again?
Yeah.
On this show, that I don't think him and Bones are a good fit.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just not going to comment on that for obvious reasons, because I can't comment on that. But I do respect your opinion.
Well,
it's
and
funny,
I love Bones and I love Justin Thomas. There's nothing wrong with those two guys. Like, they're both amazing at their craft, but every once in a while, it's like putting a bunch of legends in basketball together. Like putting in a a big 3, right? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're expected to win a championship, and then they're terrible that year, and you're like, what the hell happened? Sometimes the personalities, like, I think Justin Thomas just needs to go out and play. And I think Bones is a little bit of lot of information. And I think it just gets overwhelming for JT to where he's trying to pull off that perfect shot for Bones, and it just doesn't happen. But that's my one little piece on Justin Thomas. Let's get back to the promotional problem.
Sure.
I do see what you're saying, where the live guys went, and then all of a sudden there was this void, right? You've all of a sudden cut a bunch of big names out of the picture, but the PGA Tour should have somebody on the inside that they're getting this information from, right? I guess that's my point, and that's what I feel like is lacking, because you look at the UFC, another individual sport that is brilliant at promoting individual people. And I mean, everybody thought back when Ronda Rousey lost the title, because she was their big promotional tool, that all of a sudden, oh, the UFC's done, that they lost their cash cow. Then all of a sudden they promoted this young guy from Ireland who had charisma, and
yes, he did.
Ends up being Conor McGregor, right? And everybody talks about that rise of Conor McGregor. The UFC is the one who built him up and turned him into what he is, and that cash cow, and they do it time and time again. All of a sudden, Israel Adesanya, you got John Bone Jones, which, by the way, that's a guy who, was an absolute legend, and they didn't even really want to promote him because of all the issues that were around him in his personal life, but still build him up because they know how much money somebody like that can make for them. That's one area that I think the PGA Tour just has a problem, where they don't get that inside information to say, hey, this guy, and I think you're right, by the way. I think they check off guys that they don't come out and just crush it right off the bat and all of a sudden start performing well.
Well, I've said it numerous times before, and even after he won the Wells Fargo and was so impressive, now he will, but Wyndham Clark, how do I say it? Wyndham Clark doesn't sell tickets, right? Even after Wells Fargo, nobody woke up. Very few people woke up.
No, because nobody knew about him.
Yeah, I know, but it's obvious why they didn't know about him, because he was just an average tour player that was barely keeping his card, that had a ton of talent. And really, let's give props to Julie, right? His shrink coach. I don't know her last name.
Oh, I love that quote that she gave him too.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. When they start yelling Rickie's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she told him to think of your goals and get cocky and go show them who you are. I love that.
Yeah, I got to know her a little bit because Kyle Stanley is a different person, right? And he's always looking for a little push and trying to do something different. And she actually came out with Kyle Stanley some years ago and helped him kind of blossom into, winning a couple times on tour. Obviously, Kyle got the job done, but she was a big help. And, I kind of checked her out the last year with Wyndham, and she's all in on the putting green, and she's whispering stuff to him all the time. She's helping him go through his routine and his practice. And so let's just say practice with a purpose. And let's be honest, we know Wyndham's story, losing his mom to cancer, and it was obviously very devastating. And, I lost my dad to melanoma at a very young age, but it was such a young age is that I didn't really have any heartbreak. I just went through my whole life feeling like I would see dads at Little League games, and I was just like, man, that must feel great, right? Because I was just dealt. There's nothing you can do. I don't whine about it. It's just the hand you were dealt, and there's nothing you can do in life to change that. But I think he just, is maturing as an individual. And I'm sure that I would never ask him this personally, but I'm sure that's why he probably had a lot of inner rage on the golf course, because you get that huge loss in your life. Because we all know moms with young golfers and AGA golfers, they're the ones waking up at the crack of dawn, driving their kids everywhere. Parents ask nothing in return. They just want their kids to be happy. So I'm sure he was thinking about her for the last hour or two out there. He actually said something at the end of the telecast about it. And I've never seen a caddy and a winner in such an emotional, tear-filled embrace in my life. And it broke me up a little bit too, because it just meant so much to him. And I know he had his sister there, and he had a group of guys there. And I know, as you know, Wyndham's a fun guy. He likes to go out and have a couple drinks and talk some shit. And he's a guy's guy, right? He's a guy's guy, and everybody roots for a guy's guy. But the whole promoting thing, I don't think they really knew. We know who sells the tickets. Well, now we know who's going to sell tickets, because everybody's going to want to come watch this young American, like you said, good looking, ripped, prototypical, handsome guy
and he
that can play some golf.
The ball. I don't think that gets talked about enough on the broadcast.
Yeah, he's as long as anybody, honestly, when he wants to be. He's as long as anybody. He's got such fantastic balance for such great speed. That is an athlete, and that's where the game is these days, right?
I also think the broadcast didn't do a great job of kind of touting him throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, you were listening to the whole thing. I mean, they're basically like, oh yeah, he's one of those guys that just hits a cut. It's like, why are you putting in that context? Like, the guy absolutely murders the ball. Like, talk about his length, talk about his accuracy, talk about how good his putting has been. And they started to here and there, but overall, I thought they didn't do enough, even in the broadcast, of really, and this is a guy who won 6 weeks ago, right? Max Homa said it best. Max Homa was talking about him before Quail Hollow, and then after Quail Hollow, and then even, I want to say that it was either Sunday morning or Saturday. He was on an Instagram Live with JT, with Justin Thomas.
Yeah, they were drinking rosé.
Exactly. I mean,
real masculine. Max
was looking a little slush, let's be honest. And this is coming from a guy who drinks on a show. So as we looked at him, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I think Wyndham Clark is going to win it at 10 under.
He nailed it. Yeah,
he freaking nailed it.
Yeah,
I mean, and he knows how good. Well, and that's what I'm talking about. Is like, if these guys all knew how good Wyndham Clark is, and just knew that it was a matter of time, because they play with each other in Scottsdale. I mean, Wyndham was talking about times that he was playing with Rickie Fowler out in Florida, and it's just like, these guys know. Why can't the PGA Tour just have somebody that in player relations or whatever, or even within talent, that it's like, hey, this guy's there. Like, got to start promoting him now, so that when he wins, it's that much bigger. I just think the PGA Tour is leaving money on the table when these guys all of a sudden win and nobody knows of them, and then all of a sudden they try to promote them. It's almost that it's too late at that point. And I don't know. I mean, I might be on an island on this one, but
No, that's cool. I understand, but to me it was cool. Listen, there's two guys that sell the most tickets out here, right? It's Rickie Fowler and it's Jordan Spieth. Every kid wants to come see Rickie Fowler, and every kid wants to come see Jordan Spieth. And it was quite obvious after day one that this turned into the Rickie Fowler show, and it was his tournament to win or lose. And I just, as much as I was rooting for him and his Ricky and Ricky Romano, you just had a feeling that he probably wasn't going to be that comfortable on a Sunday in that situation. To me, I don't know. I just
look
got
at his
that
comeback
vibe.
trail, though. Look at that trajectory, right?
I know
so you're
that.
spot on
That's
when you
obvious.
said,
Yeah.
I mean, his trajectory is trending upwards, but it's still a little early in that trajectory to win a U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt that going into Sunday. And I'm just like, when all of a sudden I saw him bogey, gosh, how many holes in the first 6 holes? I think it was 3 bogeys in the first 6. And I'm just going, yeah, that's what I expected, because Rickie Fowler is not entirely there yet, but he's there, if that makes sense.
Excuse me. And unfortunately, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I was just going to say that he has shown that his game is there, but he hasn't had enough experience recently in those big moments of winning golf tournaments.
Right. And unfortunately, those bogeying the first 6 holes are the ones that you get out there, right? You got to build a little cushion and get around that front side or 2 or 3 or 4 under, because the golf course, as many guys have stated, really starts on the backside. So on to next year, on to Pinehurst.
Pinehurst. And I love Pinehurst number 2. Oh my God.
That was my very first US Open as a caddy, 2005. I worked for that stud out of Arizona, Chris Nallen. He never panned out, but when you're caddying on the then, what were we, the Nationwide Tour or Web.com? I can't remember.
Probably Nationwide back then.
You got to win with him, and then he goes and does a qualifier. I was at home, and then I'll never forget it. The agent calls me and says, "You're going to the U.S. Open at Pinehurst." And I told you my story. I got there 2 days early. I pulled into caddy parking. This BMW pulls in, and I'm watching this old guy that can barely walk it out of this BMW, and it's fluff. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And Chris made the cut there at Pinehurst. Obviously, it's not the most famous winner, Michael Campbell, but it was very famous because Jason Gore, a local Southern California boy, one of our guys, looked like he was going to win it. And it turned out that him and Retief Grusin were in the last group, and they were actually had a $5 bet. You remember the story on the last hole on who was going to crack 80, if one of them was going to crack 80. So I'm ready for Pinehurst, and obviously I plan on being there with my new talent, because he's got the game that can probably, I'm not going to say he's going to ever win a U.S. Open, but he could sure be competitive on those super tough golf courses. So on to the next one, man. One more major to go.
Now it's one of the favorite golf tournaments of all the players, which is the Travelers Championship in Cromwell, Connecticut. TPC. Yes. It is a great track up there. Bobby, give us a little bit of that course analysis.
Well, I mean, it is green. It's very green because it's here in, well, you say it's Hartford, but it's actually Cromwell. It's in a kind of a little sleepy working class area. There's not a lot to do. It's not like the greatest hotels around. Like I said, I'm at a Holiday Inn Express, but there's something special. I mean, I know I wouldn't say you're from this neck of the woods, but they're very passionate about their sports. You feel like when you're here that it's the only gig in town for a week. And for this to be an elevated event is just fantastic for the community. And it's an awesome golf course. It's funny. We played 18 holes in the Pro-Am yesterday on Monday, and it's kind of a simple golf course for the first couple holes. And I remember my guys thinking to myself, 14 or 15 under usually gets it done around here. And Xander went Yahtzee last year and won handily, and got to 19 under, which you don't see out here. But my guy even said to me after 2 holes, he goes, "What's so hard about this course?" And then all of a sudden you got to hit a nice little tee shot on 3, and you got the toughest hole on the course on 4. 7's a good, is a really good hole. You got some great par 3s. And I always rave about these golf courses. I love those golf courses where you turn on a Sunday and you're 5 shots off the lead and you're looking at 17 behind you, 17 green right there behind you. Where there's a drivable hole and there's a par 5, where you can make up some quick ground. Your guy that works out at your gym, Kevin Streelman, came from the clouds some years ago. I believe I finished 3rd or 4th that year with Brendan Steele. We posted a number early, and I believe Streel's birdied 7 holes in a row on the backside, 6 or 7 in a row to win by a couple shots. So it's just a super exciting golf course. It's in great shape. It's a really tough golf course when it gets firm, but unfortunately we got a little drizzle tonight, and it looks like Thursday through Sunday, we're in that 60 to 70% range, which it's going to soften up this golf course because you could feel them the last couple of days trying to get a little bit firm when you're walking on them. And, I can almost feel it in certain tennis shoes that they're going to turn and get firm. And it looked like it was going to, but unfortunately, I think with this rain coming that we're going to get a scoreable golf course. But with that being said, on the backside here, you still got to hit shots, right? Like that hole you're looking at 17 right there, you're on a way elevated tee up there. There's water all the way down the right. You're hitting some kind of a hybrid or a 2-iron off the tee. You got to cover the water on the next one, get a good number. The par 3 before it, you remember what that's famous for? 2 things. I'm going to see if your memory's any good. Bubba Watson melting down on Ted Scott. And for people that are watching this, behind Matt on that red umbrella right there is the par 3 green that I was standing on last year on Thursday when the kid lost control of the golf cart and came all the way down 17 tee.
Oh, I'm so glad you remembered that.
Tee, and the cart went right into the water, and the kid was all bloody. And I was trying to.
Bobby turns around, he's looking. I'm watching on PGA Tour live, and
I looked like this, didn't I?
You were like what? What just happened? You wouldn't know.
I was in shock.
Yeah, as if and then there's stuff floating.
Well, the seat of the car, but it could have been really a disaster because there was no group on that 17T, and he literally came across that thing. And that surprises. I was just like, is this happening right now? But you remember what happened was that there was a marshal there next to the green on the right, what would be over Matt's left shoulder to my right. There was a marshal there, and when the kid got pitched out of the golf course, started tumbling down the hill, that cart's moving 30 miles an hour, and these 2 marshals try and get into the way like they're going to stop this golf cart from going in the water. And then you remember we were making fun because the cart got submerged and the guy stepped into the water. He's going to pull out a 5,000-pound golf cart, and the seat's floating down there. Behind that, you can't see it, but the grandstand is that famous 15th hole where you just see 40% of the guys hit it in the water over there on the left. It's funny, my kid, my guy doesn't know this golf course, right? And that par 4 right there is like one of the most famous par 4s. I mean, there's 10 at Riviera. There's a few that just everybody in the world knows.
That's going to be fun for you.
Here's a funny story. My kid's like, I'm giving him numbers, and he's like, oh. And I'm like, you don't know this hole? 15? He's like, no, I don't see this hole before, Bob. I'm Korea, bro. I'm rookie. And I'm like, it's a 15 at Hartford at Travelers. You never seen this hole? He goes, just give me the number, bro. So I'm like, see what he goes, just give me the number. I go, and we're meters, right? 251 front and 16, 267. He's like, what do you? And I'm like, it's 3-wood. It pitches a little short if it gets up. And I was just giving him, wherever that flag is, you're finishing right at that flag. You're not trying to hit this green. You're just trying to get up and down for birdie, right? So he pulls this thing left. He's like, where's that? And I go, it's in the water. It's in the water. He goes, that can't be in the water. I go, it's in the water. You've never seen this hole. I've seen this hole. It's in the water. So we're playing the Pro-Am. We get down there, and it's up by like an inch, right? And he's like, I got 1 foot in the water, and he hits this chip shot to like 2 feet. He makes 3, and I go, nice birdie. He goes, birdie? I go, yeah. I go, it's a par 4, dude. He goes, this par 4? Oh yeah, this is in LA North. So it's super exciting. And then we have a par 5 before that. I'm getting all excited now. We have a par 5 before that. Yeah, we have a par 5 before that, 13 over that little pond that has the huge slope in the green where it's funny. My guy striped one down the middle and had a 4-iron in. And I was telling him, hey, you just got to miss this green to the right. And he hits this beautiful looking thing right on this back left flag. And he doesn't know there's a huge slope there. And when a 4-iron lands on the green and gets to the top of the slope and goes all the way back down the water, he just like goes like this, turns his head sideways. And he goes, what's this? And I go, you just got to go up there and make sure that you're missing this green to the right. So we're super excited. It's in fantastic shape. Everybody who is a great player other than those, 8 or 10 of those live guys are here. And it's our last $20 million event. And there's some extra points. Ticket sales are going through the roof. Like I said, it's this sleepy little Cromwell area, but they come from, guys will come from New York City. They'll come from New York and they'll drive over and they'll spend the weekend here. So we can't wait to get it go. You see that little red umbrella there? They do this thing with so they do this that's actually a green, right? It's AstroTurf. And there's early in the week, there's a flag up there and it's a little 85-yard shot. So the caddies and the players get to get up there and hit a shot for charity and that kind of stuff. And Well, I'm slightly better than my 2 for 16 at 17 at the Players. So I'm about 3 for 17 on this one, and I landed it just short, right under the corner of the umbrella, like there, and I flagged it. But every year I keep telling myself, it's 85 yards, and I don't swing a golf club anymore, right? And that's a perfect 58 or 60 degree for somebody, right? But I'm always trying to chip this low kind of 56. And I don't know. I'm convinced that AstroTurf, those mats, there's a little AstroTurf mat. Have you ever practiced on mats where you're like, oh, I can draw the ball now? Have you ever noticed that? For some reason, you feel like it bounces into the ball and it goes left a little bit.
In a normal grass, that's a chunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Our viewers don't need to know that, Matt. They're not good golfers, man. They're just average golfers. So, anyways, that's
I'm
kind of
not
my
saying
rundown.
that. Our audience members are fantastic golfers.
I will tell you that it's funny. I am a big fan of Austin Kaiser and Joe Greiner. That Austin Kaiser is Xander's caddy and Joe Greiner is Max's caddy, right? And I saw this, and the reason why these guys are great caddies, I watched this guy, Austin Kaiser, out there for 18 holes, for 9 holes on the backside, walking this golf course like he had never seen it before in his life. And now that's a caddy. He's out there grinding. And I was giving him shit in the middle of 14 fairway. I go, 19 under last year, bro. What are you doing out here? And he goes, trying to get to 20, Bob, trying to get to 20. Wow. But he is just taking such time, and he's such a true professional. And it's nice to see how far we've come as caddies in the long run, where we get the hot dog and not allowed in the locker room. And it's fun. It's a big business job now. Right. And we're all super proud of the way that the PGA Tour has, embraced us as part of the family, so to speak. Of course, they could make some more strides and that kind of stuff, but it's nice to be part of this action. And we're really looking forward to getting going here. Penny bet?
Love that. Penny bets. Penny bets.
Penny bets. You're the champion of the world.
It is penny bets time.
Go.
5 rounds of penny bet action. Here we go. All right, Bobby, I get to go first since I'm the big winner.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay.
Are you? Really? Gosh, you just opened the door for me to pick one of 2 favorites, but I was so impressed with Austin Kaiser out there. I am going to go with the defending champion at 19 under, Xander Schauffele. Xander Schauffele will be my pick. And that is our only bet. We're not doing
here's the thing. Now we got best friends going at it this week.
Yeah, we do. That's right. I forgot about that.
I knew if I went Patrick Cantlay that you were going to go Xander, and I don't think Xander's going to repeat.
Guess who my second choice would have been? Scottie Scheffler.
I mean,
why wouldn't I? If he could putt, he'd win 7 tournaments in a row.
I had that as a question tonight because
if
Scottie Scheffler could putt right now, would he not be the closest thing to the domination that we saw from Tiger Woods?
Yeah, he would be.
I mean, he'd be winning everything right now.
Dustin hit that little run some years ago where he won 3 out of 4 tournaments and he looked like he was unbeatable. But I am surprised that Scottie Scheffler has not snapped a putter on national television yet, because some of those putts are UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. You ugly. Yeah. They are limping up there. They're not catching edges.
They're not good.
They're just not good for a guy that was known for supposedly making everything. But golf is hard, right, Matt? Golf is hard, and it has no favorites. Golf has no favorites. And this another thing about this course, it's got drama, right? Remember, this is where I was behind Furyk when he went for a little 58. This is where Jordan hooped that bunker. This is where Jordan hit the tee off of 18 and kicked back in the fairway. He got a miraculous up and down, and then he took down Berger by hooping that bunker shot, So we got a lot to be thankful for right now. A lot.
I do. I'm very grateful for golf and its current state, which brings us to the part that we're not so grateful for, which is the merger. So the latest on the merger. First of all, I know everybody probably has heard that Jay Monahan stepped down due to a medical issue for a short period of time. So we wish him all the best. On a serious note, we hope you get better very, very soon. I mean, in this type of atmosphere and everything, and with how much drama and stress was going on, a human being can't take. You text me after last week's show, and you sent me that about Jay, and I mean, my response to you was, no human being can handle the amount of stress and pressure that is on him right now, because and it's not positive stress, it's negative stress.
Right.
So that we wish you nothing but the best, and kudos to you for having the kahunas to just sit there and take it for the most part. Now, Tom Watson, he had scathing open letter. Are you not positive on this? You're negative on it.
I don't like
you don't
him.
like it.
I don't like him. I don't like him at all. I don't think a lot of guys out here. He's a different era. I don't think a lot of guys out here like him at all. You know, I have met him a couple times. I've never had any words with him, but there's a couple famous caddies out here who I stayed with. I want to say when Phil won Muirfield, if you've heard our past episode, you know who these caddies were. And we went down to this pizza place a couple nights, and he just thought he was the president. He's out there signing articles, kissing babies. And one of these famous caddies made a comment like, he's just not that nice of a guy. He thinks his shit doesn't stink. Excuse me for saying that. And I read about the first paragraph, and I just like, you're going to have to fill me in, man. This is your department, but I am not going to go through this, because this is a different generation. This is a different era. Yes, he's one of the greatest golfers of all time, but he's not. Yes, he's a PGA Tour member. Yes, he was a fantastic Champions Tour player, multiple majors. We all know about the shot on 17 at Pebble Beach. We all know he was a British Open domination, which was unbelievable for an American at that stage. We also know that at 50-some years old, he was one par away on 18 from taking down Stuart Sink at Trumpy's place that Trumpy bought. So, you know, I'm just not a big fan of this guy, because it's like, you know, and not to mention his antics when he recently was the Ryder Cup captain, where he created division inside the locker room, like it's going to be my way or it's not going to happen kind of deal with the pairings. And it's like, man, I'm a big fan of recently retired golfers, you know, or golfers that are still playing, a Jim Furyk or a Zach Johnson or a Freddie Couples, that are in the loop with the younger players. So I feel like that letter was all about him and how he would do things. So I couldn't take it after one paragraph, because I knew that opening paragraph. Oh, I wish Jay the best, and he's great, and that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
it was a little condescending as it went on.
Yeah,
I mean, it kind of became what changed from before to now, and I want answers, and I mean, rightfully so, that everybody wants answers right now. But why does it need? Like, why did you need to put yourself out there and write this open letter? Like, if you had a bunch of players signing off on it, and it wasn't just from you, and it was an open letter from numerous players, I can understand that. So I'm with you from that standpoint. I wanted to get your take on it, so it was interesting to see that kind of inside scoop around Tom Watson, the person. And
nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it out here the last couple of days. I don't think anybody really. You know, these are young guys out here, right? They grew up watching Tom, but some of them were so young they never even got to watch Tom Watson play, other than, you know, Shell's wonderful World of Golf highlights or the shot I'm talking about.
Shell's wonderful World of Golf highlights. They're on YouTube, by the way, folks.
Yeah, nobody really talked about it out here. So,
and
you know,
any
that's just
word from the meeting this evening, because there was the meeting.
Yeah, so I did make a couple phone calls, and there was nothing. There was no news. There was a little update. I believe they were just saying, "Hey, Jay's doing fine, and hopefully he'll be back soon," and that kind of stuff. We don't have very many answers for you as far as the PIF goes and that kind of stuff. But be patient with us and have faith in us and trust in us that we are taking this the right way and the right direction. I think Rex Hoggard wrote a little paragraph that kind of said the same thing. I do know that a few of the players that I text said, "Hey, there was no Grayson Murray fucking standing." Excuse me, I said it. Sorry. I hope we don't get that YouTube ban. Grayson Murray's not standing up calling for somebody's resignation fresh off of his Korn Ferry Tour win, and that the guys were more abrasive and they were all ears, and there was just nothing to come out of it. But there was another meeting at 5:00 today. For the first time in a long time, there was a mandatory caddy meeting that we all had to go to at 5:00. That's going to be exciting. That's fun. That's going to be better to talk about. So, excuse me. We have new caddies coming in every single year, right? And I've said on the past, you know, the big topic was bunker raking, something simple like bunker raking, right? Like taking your time raking a bunker. You guys are doing. They said it very positively, but they said they were like, hey, it's a couple officials in there, and they flat out said, you guys look around. You're the best caddies in the world, right? You guys are the best caddies in the world. You represent the best caddies in the world. You represent all caddies. We need to tighten up the bunker raking. If divots go flying in bunkers, we're all sharing stories about it. We're pulling out 6 or 7 divots. Guys aren't taking their time raking bunkers. So that was a very big topic. Another topic that was brought up that I've heard about, but I've never really witnessed everything, is obviously we've got rid of these greens books, but apparently there are some guys that are still, let's just say, cheating, apparently, that they're putting, stuff in their greens books, in these new yardage books that we carry that don't have a ton of detailed information. They're adding stuff that they shouldn't be adding in. So that was a big topic that we need to police each other on that. And if they hear, or if the officials heard any more stories, excuse me, I got the burps going tonight. If they might be the nicotine pouches, buddy, I don't know. But they reserve the right to spot check some books, because there's, as I've told you before in the past, there's been rumors going around of some, I'm not going to mention any names, of some very successful, wealthy caddies out here who've had unbelievable last 2 or 3 years, that they're fudging the system and doing stuff in these books that they shouldn't be doing. So we're going to police each other with something like that. Locker room access was a topic. I remember when I first started out, we couldn't go. It was like an alarm would go off if we went in the locker room, but things have changed there. So they wanted to make sure that obviously with the TrackMans and the quads and the changing of equipment and that kind of stuff, I literally was in and out of the locker room 6 times today, but you're in and you're out. You're not in there to grab a beer out of the cooler that are there for the players. I mean, if a caddy wants to go in and grab a couple beers and take it back to his hotel room, that's fine. But so they don't want any lingering there. I think we all look pretty good out there. We take pride in how we look and that kind of stuff, but they just wanted to go over some dress code things and stuff like that. And pace of play was brought up today. And it was quite obviously that they are going to start enforcing pace of play more, and they are depending on us to keep our players moving out there, and for us to keep our eyes in front up front. And if a group gets away, that we need to, a player's focused on his game. They're not seeing where the group is in front of them, but they're putting some responsibility on us to keep pace of play. Obviously, that's a big issue on the PGA Tour, pace of play going, and just a few topics like that. It was kind of a rah-rah session, but when you get 130 caddies in there, you get, I'm not going to mention any names, but you get the 2 or 3 guys that are raising their hands for questions that think they're smarter than everybody else. And one guy asks a stupid question, and then all of a sudden there's it's disrespectful, 20 or 30 comments, and guys are rumbling. And it's like, hey, can we just shut up and pay attention to the program? So I guess we're going to have one of these meetings about every year right now, but they like I said, they pumped up stuff. We are the best. We are the best caddies in the world for obvious reasons, because we work for the best players in the world. But there are certain standards that we need to set on television, and they just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the program. Nobody was doing anything that they shouldn't do, and to look good out there and take care of the bunkers. And divot replacement has been horrible out here. Nobody takes their time replacing divots. And I understand Bermuda shreds and everything, and goes to a million pieces, but it takes 2 seconds to scoop that Bermuda, kick that divot in with your foot, replace whatever you can replace, even if you're in the rough. There was a topic that the last group just because you're the last group of the day doesn't mean you don't rake a bunker, right? You don't leave it for maintenance. It's protocol to do a very good job. And I said this to a couple of caddies before while we were walking to the parking lot. I said, I could walk into the caddy room and I could pinpoint at 2 tables who the majority of the guilt is. It's not us veteran guys, because we take pride in, I know it's a silly topic to talk about, but we take pride in our bunker raking. And you wanted, basically, Matt, you wanted to look better after you're done with it than when you got into it. So that was
since you gave me that bunker advice,
flipping it backwards,
flattening it out, and then breaking it through.
Yeah, and
Bunkers
it's a
have
light
not been
green.
more beautiful. Yeah, it's very light. You got to do it very light.
Sometimes I get out of a bunker and I'm like, God, I did a good job on that. And sometimes I get out of a bunker and I look and I'm like, man, I didn't do a very good job. I need to get back in there. So my point is, nobody's ever gotten mad at a caddy for taking his time raking a bunker. It's when you do the quick rake jobs and you get out of there. And listen, I understand that your player can be 50 yards ahead of you and that kind of stuff, but we the veteran caddies out there that have experience, we work together as a team, right? So let's say that me and Matt are playing on the PGA Tour. We both drive it into the same bunker, right? Well, let's say Matt knocks it on the green. Matt knocks it on the green, right? And I knock it, and I'm short of the green, so I'm going to be next to play. So it's protocol out here that caddy's going to get both spots for both guys to keep pace and play going. So it's just little things that they wanted to touch on. The Greens book thing was like a trip to me because I'm such a karma guy where I'm like, how can guys do, how can guys that are successful do something like that and live with themselves at night? So it'll be the deal is that they're going to start spot checking guys if they hear stories. You want to know what the big topic was too? And I'm not going to mention what official was in there running the meeting, but he's kind of a head official. And he didn't say the word bullshit, but he goes, listen, guys, the flashing the clubs to television is fine, the flashing the 5. But he basically said, he goes, if that scenario with Brooks Koepka and Rickie and Butchie and Gary Woodland happened out here, we're not going to stand for it. That's going to be a deuce for both guys. Both guys are going to be penalized. If somebody wants to come look in your bag, just do it the right way. Let them see what you hit, but you don't need to be, you can still flash television, but if we see it happen, we are not going to be afraid to slap somebody with a fine. So everybody, they didn't like it that the fact that after this happened with Brooks and it was blatantly obvious that it happened, right? We all know it was blatantly obvious. I think they really got the rules official staff a little sideways when they said it's common out here. And honestly, I've done it before. I'm going to tell you, I've done it many times where guys looked at me, and I don't like doing it in the fairway, but I'll do it. I flashed this before for a 7-iron or this. You never think of it as like soliciting advice, because they still have to execute and hit a shot. So that was also a big topic. I had a big question because you can't use these greens books or that information in during competition, right? So my big thing was, okay, suppose we're at Phoenix and we get that frost delay, right? And nobody finishes, right? And you have to restart at 7:30 in the morning, and your guy has a 12-foot putt, and you know exactly what angle it's from, right? And I've seen it happen in the past where some caddies whip out greens book and and listen, it doesn't take. Most of us caddies have really good memories, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out this is a 3.2, this is a 2.2, and this is a 1.6 right to left slope. I've seen caddies do that. And I brought that up in the meeting and I go, tell me the scenario where there is a restart or a weather delay and a guy has a 15-footer and a caddy looks at his greens book and that kind of stuff. And you know what they said to me? So you can do it. We haven't touched on that it's not during competition that you can do something. And that didn't feel right to me. And even the official said, he's like, I know it doesn't feel right. That's a topic that we're talking about, but it's not during competition. So you can use that stuff. And the other things about putting levels on greens, you can't put a level on a green anymore. You can put it on a putting green. And I think we all came to the conclusion. The problem is they do sell these greens books for a certain amount of players because they like using them. You can use them in a practice round. And we all have them from the last 3 or 4 years in our closets, and we'll bring them to tournaments and stuff like that, but we won't use them. I think it's getting to the point where they're just going to say there's no greens books allowed. You cannot reference a greens book. We're going back to feel and that kind of stuff. It's slowing down play. Some guys like doing it. I think it's no coincidence that Bryson DeChambeau has not won a tournament since then. I think it's no coincidence, I'm going to say it, and I've said it before, that Dustin and Austin Johnson have not won a golf tournament then because they were very reliant on that, and they got very good at figuring out how to read a greens book. If you put a greens book in front,
live events there, Bobby.
Settle down, big man. 48 guys, 47 guys to be. Yeah, I don't think they can use. They can't use them on those either. But you made a good point on that. But I meant out here where those guys get addicted to it. I have hundreds. So
you're
of these
against the greens books.
Yeah, well, everybody is. The USG, it's against the rule. It's against the rules now. But
but
can I say this? I used to carry a greens book because Sungjae and the Koreans, and I've had many players that like to look at them. And I couldn't, it's an art form to figure out. Yes, you can see the slopes, right? But it's an art form to figure out the angle. And just because an arrow is going right to left doesn't necessarily mean that putt is going right to left. What I used to use them for is approach shots more than anything. Like, where is exactly the backstop, and exactly which way is that backstop going, and what's it going to do as it races by the hole, and try and get the best look. So I think we all came to the agreement that these things need to go bye-bye in the future. So that was the big meeting.
Goodbye, green books.
The caddy meeting. Yeah, and it's funny. I had finished at like 2:00. The meeting was at 5:00, right? And I'm wearing my, typical, a dry fit and gym shorts and some sick ass Jordans. The Luca ones are out with the salmon on it, folks. You can get them cheap on StockX. So, and they're like, hey, we don't want any caddies out here. We see some of this attire with like gym shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm sitting there wearing that at the table. Everybody's like staring at me, and they're like, no, we're not talking to you. It's all good. Just during pace of play. Obviously, they told us it rattles some players. When Tiger you remember the Nike mocks that came out, not the full mocks, but the ones that were cut like this, just like a crew neck and that kind of stuff. They were saying that a couple players have complained like, hey, this caddy's not, maybe having a bad day. Come look at this caddy. He's not wearing a golf shirt. And he was telling a story where he went out and he looked at this caddy. He's like, what, dude, it's fine. It's Nike. It's the same shirt that Tiger wears and that kind of stuff. So it was just little things that we were touching on. I wish I had more information for you from the player meeting. I'm sure I might get a tidbit of information that I can pass on to you next week. But I do know that there's another big meeting next week at Detroit, which doesn't have the same quality feel that this one does. So, as time goes on, we wish Jay the best. I mean, there's people out there that are conspiracy theory thinking that this is a planned sickness, so to speak, which just breaks my heart, because this is on his way out. And you put that with the Tom Watson letter. And then you saw Davis Love came out with something today, a very short 3-paragraph thing. And it's like, hey, I've been on these pack boards before, and I am 110% behind the PGA Tour. They know what they're doing. They know how to run these golf tournaments, and I am behind them whenever they decide. So that's it from the meetings.
There it is. Great work, Bob.
That's it.
Great work.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
And great show tonight. I appreciate you.
Caddies are people too.
Absolutely. They're a big
Talking
part
about
of this.
back when I was a big IPA drinker, right? At this tournament at Hartford, they have like 8 different kinds of 7-8% IPAs. And they used to do it at TPC Boston too. And I would literally go in there with the shoe. I would take out like 6 or 8 beers, and I'm like, I just saved $30 on beers, and I'm going to get a good little buzz tonight. But I'm, 2.5 years later, I'm past this stage. Can I share a personal story with you?
Sure.
Okay, so a personal story. So obviously it was Father's Day, last Sunday, but I caught a flight out of there super, super early on Sunday morning to try and get really prepared for this week. My guy hadn't seen the course, as I said, but we had a little date night, me and Lori, in downtown Charleston Thursday, a place called, it's on Cannon Street, which is a famous street down there. It runs across Upper King Street, and she found this restaurant, Southbound it was called, right? So we went in, had a nice little romantic dinner. It was average at best. I don't drink, but on date nights, I'd like to have a drink. So Tito's on the rocks, right? With 3 big blue cheese olives, right? So I drink these Tito's and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm feeling frisky. Got the hotel room tonight. Boom, boom. Got the blue pill. Everything's going to be great. And then she's like, you're going to have another drink. She's had a margarita. So, and then I have a glass of wine. We obviously have a babysitter, spent the night with the boys, but we had some soccer early, so we had to wake up early. Can I tell you, 1 Tito's on the rocks and 1 glass of some red wine, I felt like shit for like 48 hours. How's that? Do you remember those days? Yeah. No headache or anything like that. And I remember Lori's like, how are you? And I'm like, I feel like shit. My stomach's all jacked up. I have no energy. And I looked at her and I go, I would pay. Can you go to the neighbor's house? Because I got a $50 bill for anybody that's got a Xanax right now. Because that's all I'm craving right now is a Xanax, and just melt into the couch and watch the Rickie Fowler show. So that's my personal thing. That's why I quit drinking.
There you go.
And so I taught my little boys the word lightweight. What a lightweight is. I said, look at me and look at the color of my face. I am a lightweight now. Bobby B out.
Bobby B out. Matt C out.
Bobby B out. Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thanks,
good night,
Matt,
Bobby.
man.
Have a good
I'll
week.
see you next week. Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of the Pull Hook Golf Podcast. Make sure to hit subscribe and go to www.pullhookgolf.com for more